Meta's earnings are out and it does not look good. In fact, their stock is crashing after hours by 12%. Mind you, they're already down 62% year to date. So for us investors, this is not going to look good in our portfolios. I am invested in Meta and I'm going to show you my portfolio performance now, and that's something I do with every single video. So if you appreciate that type of transparency, be sure to subscribe and let's look at it. We'll see here that overall my portfolio is in the red today by 5.7%. So that's a slight tick further into the red from yesterday. I think I was a little under 5%. Now, Meta is down about 40% for me in my portfolio. Tomorrow this will be a lot more heavy in the red, and it's a decent allocation in my portfolio. It's 7.33% by market value. So I'm just prepared that this is gonna eat at my portfolio for probably quite some time. I still think this stock will turn around long term, and I'll explain why, but let's get into their earnings. We will see here that they missed pretty massively on their earnings. They were expecting a $1.89 earnings per share, and they came in at $1.64. Now they did do a slight revenue beat. They had an expected revenue of $27.38 billion, and they had an actual revenue number of $27.71 billion. So not a good sign for Meta to miss their earnings by this large of an amount, their earnings per share. And there are some other disturbing things in their earnings that I think as an investor it's important to note. So let's get started with everything Meta from their earnings. So their daily active users, these are important numbers for this social media giant, came in at 1.98 billion, which is actually up 3% year over year. Now expectations were 1.86 billion, so it actually had a decent beat when it came to daily active users. Now their monthly active users was 2.96 billion, which is up 2% year over year, and the expected monthly users was 2.97 billion, so just a slight miss there. Their ad impressions did rise 17%, but on the very negative side, their average price per ad is down 18%. So what that comes out to is an average revenue per user of $9.41. And analysts were expecting $9.83. So a decent miss there as well, showing that pressure that the ad revenue is shrinking everywhere in the market. And because Meta is so heavy in that space, it's hitting them extra hard. Now their free cash flows did not look good. So at the end of June 30th, 2022, they had free cash flows of $35.83 billion. Right now, it went down to $13.15 billion. That's a huge decrease. And last September, it was $25.876 billion. So their free cash flows are going down. That's because they're spending massively on the metaverse, which we will get to in a minute. Now their expenses rose 19% year over year, and their net income has dropped 52% year over year. Meta's revenue overall fell 4% to that $27.71 billion. Now I want to show you this chart real quick. This kind of shows us the revenue over time. So on the left is on an annual basis, the right is on a quarterly. So you'll see from 2009, they were at 777 million. All the way up to 2021, at the end of the year, they were almost at $118 billion. I think they'll come in at the end of 2022 about $119 billion. So still an increase, but a slowdown. And quarterly, you'll see kind of some fluctuations over the last year. This is from 2019 through 2022. Now you will note that at the last earnings, they had 28.822 in revenue, and now they're at the 27.71 billion now that they reported for September. So overall, the revenue is slowing down, it's ticking down, but their guidance is showing that they do expect between $30 to $32.5 billion in revenue for quarter four, and expectations are about 32.2, so it falls in there on the high end. So there is a chance that they might miss expectations next time as well, but it's still an increase from this quarter, which would be good. So they repurchased 6.55 billion shares in third quarter. That is a highlight because when they dilute us and issue more shares, that's not good. But when they buy back their shares, that is creating more ownership in our shares of the company. So that is good, though they're falling in all other areas. But you got to find the bright points in these earnings. So of course, between their social media apps, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, they reach about just shy of 3 billion people each month now, which gives them great influence and opportunity. So Meta does have that on their side, which many companies don't. And that's one reason why I'm bullish, because I feel that they do have the audience. They just gotta find a way to capture that audience and get them to use their apps more, get them to sign up to be followed because of Apple's, privacy policies. It created a lot of people to say, I don't want to be followed. And also to get into the metaverse, they have an opportunity with this audience. And so far it's been a slow adoption, but we'll see what they can do. They also have Reels. There was no data in this earnings that I saw yet, but Reels is to compete with TikTok, which is very popular, growing massively. And so we'll see how Reels does. If I do find numbers, I will post it down in the comments. But I just want to make a note of that they're betting on Reels. And last time it was positive, so I'm sure I can find something at some point and I will post it. Now the Reality Labs, which is their whole metaverse thing, had a 3.67 billion loss this quarter, and they were expecting a 3.09 billion loss. So that's not good. And year to date, they're about 9 billion in losses so far in their Reality Labs division, which is the whole metaverse. Now, operating losses in 2023 are expected to grow significantly, they said, which means they are going to be investing a lot into Reality Labs, and they're probably not slowing down. And there's been a lot of calls from a lot of big investors to say, hey, Meta, please slow down your investment in Reality Labs and focus on other stuff. But I think Meta is just, they're really going heavy into this, and they don't plan on slowing down, it looks like. Now, the metaverse, what is it, right? It's a virtual world, and Mark Zuckerberg said it's the future of social media. And I do believe it's the future, and I do want to show you this. Meta is not the only company going into the metaverse. There are many companies. This is just a few. You'll see Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Nike, Apple. So many companies are going into the metaverse. And actually, Meta did sign a deal with Microsoft in order for Microsoft to be on Meta's Oculus goggles. And so that's a great partnership. And I think Meta being able to have some access to the business side of things is going to prove to be good in the end. So what it is, the metaverse is going to be a race to see who can get the most visited and popular virtual world, and that's who's going to win. So Meta was first to market, and they're trying to grab that market share early, which is going to be key. So that's something to watch out and keep a close eye on. Now, I will say the only headsets that I hear of, the virtual reality headsets, are the Oculus. I don't hear of Microsoft's HoloLens or any of the others. So I really do think they're doing an okay job so far at really making sure their Oculus is the one that people buy. And so I think they have kind of a step up there. Now, as I mentioned, they have that partnership with Microsoft, which is great. And they do have some popularity with the metaverse. I have seen workout apps using the Oculus for people to work out in the metaverse. And it's something that's becoming popular because I do follow some fitness and exercise pages on Facebook, and a lot of people are doing these virtual reality workouts and say that it's awesome and it's encouraging them to work out more and get into shape quicker. I also think with gaming, the Oculus is popular. I have a cousin who has an Oculus who games with it. I tried it out. It is very cool. And if you don't know kind of what the metaverse is, if you haven't had a chance to try the Oculus, I would suggest watching the movie Ready Player One to see kind of what it's like. It's not exactly what it's like, but it's close enough to get an idea of what these virtual worlds can do. When you put on the goggles, you literally are an avatar and you can move around. And with Oculus's new goggles that they just came out with that are $1,500, has inward-looking cameras, so it actually can show the movement of your face in these virtual worlds. So pretty awesome. So they've invested about $15 billion so far, and they're still planning, $10 billion or less a year investing in the metaverse. So why I'm bullish on Meta still? They still have growing revenue year over year. We'll see how this year ends. It is expected to be $119 billion versus 2021's $117 billion. Mark Zuckerberg did say this is going to hit Meta pretty hard for the next couple years, so he did forewarn us and prepare us. I think it is hitting a little harder than expected because I don't think the economic side of things were factored in because we're having a very hard time with inflation and things like that. So a lot of the marketing dollars are being pulled back, and I bet you Mark initially thought he would be able to depend on that, and he's not. So I think that's why you hear a lot of calls to say, pull back on that spending. So I think they are first to market. I think there is a future with the metaverse. They're partnering with big names like Microsoft. They are going all in, which hopefully tells me as an investor that I can trust them in knowing that they know something, they see something, they have a vision, and they're going after it. Because let's face it, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, they're all great. They are all huge, but their future growth is slow because they're already so big. Meta had to pivot towards something, and they're doing that. And it's okay if you disagree with me. I'm okay with that. Obviously, Meta's done horrible for me. I got in at the wrong time. I didn't factor in a lot of the economic hardships like the decrease in ad revenue. I don't think I factored in how expensive this metaverse would be initially. I knew it would be expensive, but regardless, I will keep averaging down. I think long term I will be up. This is still a generating giant. Regardless of how their cash flows have gone down, it's because they're putting so much money into the reality labs. If they wanted to pull back, they could and increase their cash flows. But I do think this company is super cheap and it doesn't deserve, I think, all of it. I think it deserves some of it, right? I think people are right to say they're putting too much money to the metaverse, though if you're bullish on it, then you want them to go heavy in on it, to be first to market, to gain that market share and do all that stuff. So I don't know. What do you think of these kind of bad earnings? And I will say this, I didn't like their decrease in their cash flow, their increase in their expenses, but I would say their active users are holding strong, growing slightly. So it's more bad, some good, and I think I expected not great, but this is a little worse than I expected. So again, I'm just gonna keep averaging down slowly because it's already a big portion, because I still see a light at the end of the tunnel. I still see the metaverse developing and becoming profitable someday for this company, but it's gonna take a long time. We're talking it could take 5+ years before I possibly see that return on this investment in the metaverse. So I have to be patient. I shouldn't have got in like I did. If you're invested in Meta, let me know your plans. Do you think you would sell out? Do you think you'll hold on? Will you add more? What does this tell you? He did warn us of, hard times with Meta, Mark Zuckerberg did, because they're pivoting. So should we say this is expected, or should we say this is worse than expected? I don't know. But I am still holding on, and I'd love to hear your guys' opinions. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time on Mark Arnold's Finance.